We can edit that out! We can edit that out! Hey! We can edit that out! Hi!
Hey, welcome to We Can Edit That Out, Season 2.
Well, thank you.
Episode 5?
4.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's episode 5.
Yeah, as you like. I've heard it both ways.
Welcome to We Can Edit That Out, Season 2, Episode 5.
Thank you for welcoming me. I'm very happy to be here. Oh, you were talking to the viewers.
Yeah.
Well, hey, we got viewers now because we're like, look at this. Can we do movie magic?
This faces only podcasts can love.
Yeah, part 2. I'm a little bit buzzed already from dinner and drinking at the park all day. So this should be fun.
Yeah, a wild ride. We'll see how this goes.
Hey, we see. This one has not been scripted out at all. Not that we scripted any of our others out. So.
We had like a blueprint. We never really scripted anything.
Hey, maybe we can post those sometimes. Do you still have our old like outlines?
I have some of them. I don't think I have all of them.
That'd be kind of rad to post, you know?
Yeah.
Hey, if you want to see them, let us know. I'm practicing freeze frames. You know, at the end of movies where they go, yeah, and they just hold it, you know? And then you see somebody do something like, okay, I can't hold this anymore. You know what I mean?
Mentos freshen for your life.
And then somebody goes, oh. And it's still freezing. So speaking of freeze frames, wow, that's a photograph, isn't it?
Not a bad.
Ooh, interesting.
Not a bad.
Not a bad. Thank you not. Okay, yeah, this one's going to get real ridiculous, but we'll be interested because we're talking about a serious subject, photography.
I mean, photography doesn't always have to
What
be serious.
was it?
Good question. It's that thing everyone has AI do for them now.
So speaking of daguerreotypes, hey, a lot of people don't know that. Photography was originally called a daguerreotype. Mm-hmm. Who was the first president to smile in a portrait?
I don't know this.
I don't either. But that was the thing. They couldn't smile because you had to sit long enough for the exposure.
Right.
That's why everyone you had to hold it.
That's why everyone looks so serious in like the early photos.
Yeah, the old-timey ones, because you had to hold that face. And it's hard to hold this face forever. Would you quit just laughing at me and say something? We're talking about daguerreotypes.
I'm just letting you let your freak flag fly.
Fact or fiction? What is a photograph? Have you ever sent a girl a dick pic?
No. Fuck no. Neither
have I think it's weird. Why do people do? Maybe that's why people listen to us, because we're really not the dick pic type of guys. You know, I don't think I'd listen to a podcast made by a guy who sends dick pics. It'd be like, you're just a fucking like a weird person who has no value to society.
The idea of sending like an unsolicited one to me is just pure insanity.
Yeah. I know. So, that is where photography has evolved into in the last 2,000 years since it was invented. Where did it come from?
Well, I don't think photography's been around for 2,000 years. I think it's still a pretty...
My best guess.
I think it's a pretty new technology still.
Don't split hairs with me. This is my best guess.
I want to pinpoint the beginnings of photography somewhere around 1830... something like that, 1840. BC? AD for sure.
So I was way off. 1830s, sounds about right to me.
I mean, the thing, photographs used to be called daguerreotypes because the guy who invented kind of the original pin box system to get exposures onto a colloidal plate, I think, his last name was Daguerre because he's a French dude. So,
which is French for danger.
Sure.
And he'd walk around saying, my last name is Danger. I told you this is going to be a fucking interesting one.
Yeah.
So, you had like a pinpoint thing that made it upside down on your exposure plate, and then you had to The light exposed for a long fucking time, like 12 hours or some shit, you know? Like we talked about before, like how people wouldn't smile. But like the original one, the very first photograph, daguerreotype, was of the Paris, a street corner in Paris.
Interesting.
And you don't really see much moving in it because the exposure, aperture, or whatever the fuck, was open so long that nothing else could be captured in it besides the buildings.
Okay.
So it looks like a desolate street.
Interesting. That's kind of cool. That's like the first
These are things I learned today.
slow exposure.
I went into a toilet and read that on a wall somewhere, like yesterday or today.
I'll bet. Are you sure it was
I'm
a
like,
toilet?
oh, I'm gonna sound so smart on the podcast tomorrow. But the thing that I thought would be interesting for us to discuss is since you're a photographer and I work with like brushes and pencils and occasionally a tattoo needle, but let's just leave that part out. Let's just talk about like the finer points of art. Fuck, now everybody's gonna give me shit like, oh, you don't think tattooing is a finer point of art? For the sake of discussion, let's just talk about painting, drawing, and photography and sculpture as the 3-4 main elements of fine art.
Okay.
And music, tattooing, interpretive dance can all be pushed aside for a further episode. So suspension of disbelief. This is just what we're dealing with in this episode.
Sure. We're just talking about visual construct.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Interesting thing to me is that when photography was developed, it kind of made painting obsolete in a fashion, because before the photograph, people were having portraits painted.
Yeah.
And people are having actual things that happened recreated in paintings, like the Battle of Waterloo, for instance. You know, nobody had a camera there, so some guy painted it. You know, and then once you had a camera, I was like, why the fuck would you paint it when you can just take a picture? You know?
I mean, it's interesting because painting really did have its origin as, you know, more of a functional societal need.
Yeah, that was your recording device in the old days. Was either a pencil and a piece of paper or a fucking brush and a canvas.
What I've always been curious about a bit is how much of the camera's invention and the onset of photography affect the direction of where painting went. Because I think right around the same time that you have photography enter the scene, and I would say it took photography probably maybe 30, 40 years to really become kind of a more mainstream, accessible thing to the general public. Actually, maybe even more than that, really.
Right.
Showing up in the 1800s, kind of carrying over into the turn of the century. Did painting then become more artistic and more expressive in general because you had a bunch of painters who didn't know what they were supposed to do with their time anymore?
I mean, that's exactly when you see the rise of Impressionism in Paris is right around the invention of the camera.
Yeah.
Because painters were like, well, what the fuck do we do now? You know? And it was like, okay, well, here's one thing photography can't do. It can't express our feelings. So we'll hold your judgment on that statement.
Yeah, sure.
Because I know that's a loaded statement, but at the time, it was like the photography doesn't capture our feeling, and I think painting had to decide where it wanted to go, you know, and that's when Impressionism was the beginning of modern art and took all the different twists and turns that we see today, where people are just, you know, slapping some brushes on canvas and calling it art, you know?
Yeah.
But when did photography decide that same thing of like, no, we are also art? Because we know that photography just started out as a recording device. You know, and you did have to have a little bit of money to have a camera back in the old days, and a big fucking setup with the fucking, you know, the hood that the guy looked over and the flash stamp. Mm-hmm. Okay, 1, 2, 3. But when I say 3, hold it for 5 minutes. bam. You know what I mean? And that was the thing. But then there was also a point where photography said, no, we want to be taken seriously as artists as well. We're not just recording the present. We are also capturing the feeling of the photographer and the subject as well.
Sure.
You know?
I would say that's Ansel Adams and the development of the zone system.
Okay, what is the zone system?
Okay, so Ansel Adams, for those of you who are not familiar, is one of the pioneers of black and white photography. He was using
But there was always black and white photography. So when you say pioneers of black and white photography, I'm not quite sure what you're
because he was the person who helped develop what we know as the zone system.
Okay.
And so what the zone system is, it's a way to kind of manipulate your exposure and your film in order to extend the dynamic range of tonal value that you can get out of an image.
Okay, so he was a pioneer of photography as an art, not photography in general.
Both, actually. So
Was Ansel Adams really that early on in
yeah, 1920, something like that, I think.
Oh, fuck. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know, what's ironic is like I used to just think Ansel Adams was boring and I didn't really understand it. But
I
then
always
when
thought I hung out with him at parties and stuff. I thought he was like my age.
So what the zone system is,
Yeah.
if you just use a camera as is, black and white, and you take a perfectly exposed picture, you're going to get somewhat of a limited range of contrast from absolute black to absolute white in an image on your negative. So what Ansel Adams did is he realized that if you, while you're taking a photo, intentionally underexpose your image by a stop or two of light coming into the camera, and then when you take your film and you go into the darkroom and you develop it, you overcompensate for that by adding development time in the darkroom to your film.
Okay, then you get a weird effect.
Not a weird effect. You get a much stronger effect. You get a very dynamic photo that has a bigger range of tonal value from absolute black to absolute white.
Okay, because I remember my photography class, the instructor said, err on the side of overexposure because at least you got it in there.
No, that is absolutely wrong.
Yeah, okay.
It would be the opposite because like if you
underexposed, it's like under. You didn't get enough in there. It's under.
Right, but the thing is with photography, you know, you always have to think about things in reverse. Like photography is you let light in through a hole in your camera that affects the film, right?
Okay.
And basically, the dark values that you see in a photograph are actually going to be completely clear on your film.
Right, like you see in a negative.
Exactly.
So it's not technically a negative, it's the positive.
Right.
But then we reverse the positive to look like what we expect to see.
Exactly. So if you overexpose your image too much, then you lose all of this information on your film and it's just totally blown
just black.
out. Yeah.
Okay,
But if you underexpose your film, you can add time in developing your film to increase the amount of these silver halide crystals that remain on the surface of the film substrate.
Okay.
So Ansel Adams to me was the person who took a relatively mechanical, perfunctory instrument and figured out how to manipulate it for a creative output.
Okay.
So Ansel Adams primarily took landscapes, but it's not just putting your camera randomly in front of the Grand Canyon and hitting the shutter. He was also very focused on making a perfect composition of that landscape so that when you look at the photo, you have a certain, I don't know. I don't even know how you describe that. I mean, you look at any photo that has bad composition versus one that has good
Right, your
one.
brain has a specific response to it that it's either pleasing in one sense, which is maybe what somebody wants to do, or it's jarring, which is also maybe something the artist wanted to do, you know?
Exactly.
Because it's like, oh, this is what you do to make a pleasing photograph, but you don't always want to make it pleasing, you know? That's the thing about art. Sometimes it's bad on purpose.
Yeah. The other complicated thing with photography is that prior to the invention of a handheld camera, you only really had these large format 8x10 and eventually 4x5 box cameras that you'd have to set up on a tripod. You couldn't just handhold it. You had to spend like an hour dialing in your exposure and setting up your film and stuff. It was much more difficult to capture the essence of a moment in real time because everything that you were taking pictures of had to be so stationary and composed. And I think that's why Ansel Adams spearheaded the landscape photography movement, because that's actually the one thing that you could do legitimately with these cameras.
Well, that was kind of the interesting thing that I was thought about before we started recording was because when we walked into your apartment, it was like still a little bit half drunk from dinner, and we were like, podcast, let's do a podcast. And then as we're setting everything up, it's like podcast, and then we're setting up the cameras again. And now we're doing cameras and stuff. It's like podcast. You know what I mean? There's a lot of work that goes behind something that's supposed to be like a immediate.
True.
You know what I mean? And look like there is no effort involved, you know? Like I always tell people, I spend a good 20 minutes making it look like I don't give a fuck about my hair.
Well, I mean,
there's a lot of work that goes behind stuff that's not supposed to look like there's no work involved.
A lot of people don't realize, but if you look at something like a menu that was graphically designed, or a beautiful photo, or like a record sleeve, and everything just looks totally effortless and simple and perfect, that actually probably took way more time than you would even imagine.
Yeah.
You know, the amount of time it goes into making something look effortless is insane.
I know we talked a lot about Finland in the last episode or the episode before. Can't remember where we're at even, but I was in Finland one time talking to this guy about getting a tattoo from me. And the night before, or the 2 nights before, something like that, it doesn't matter. I'd spent the entire fucking night working on dialing in an image from a photograph for a tattoo. You know what I mean? Like, okay, cool. This is a good photograph, but the amount of time, I spent hours perfecting this photograph to make it from a photograph into something tattooable. You know, and it doesn't look like it. When I do a tattoo, it just looks like, oh, cool, you did a photograph. And this is what this guy said. He's like, I don't want to get tattooed by you because all you do is reproduce photographs, and there's no art involved in that. And I almost slapped the guy in the face because I was like, dude, I fucking spent an entire fucking night just, to me, that's like an art form where I'm like caressing this photograph to become a beautiful subject for a tattoo, you know, not even talking about the tattoo. Maybe I'm not the best tattoo artist in the world or whatever, you know, but just the amount of time I spend on this photograph, to me, that's art, is when you like do the finessing and then like manipulation and then, like I said, caressing, you know, or maybe if you're from the 80s, romancing the stone, you know what I mean?
For sure.
So I was really upset when he told me that. But I also see his point, of course. Hey, just reproducing a photograph to our photography, it's like, well, we're coming back to the subject of today, you know, photograph, you're just reproducing something that already exists. Where's the art? But we went to Daido Moriyama. Did I say that right?
Yeah, you did.
Daido Moriyama.
Daido Moriyama.
Amazing.
Yeah, incredible Japanese street photographer from Osaka, I believe. He was just like a pioneer in street photography, had a very iconic, heavy contrast, black and white style, would even do mixed media stuff where he takes pictures of like a TV screen and then blows it up and crops it out and blasts all the contrast out of proportion. And
yeah, his manipulation of the image was just amazing to me. And you've seen everybody do like similar photographs to what he did, but he's one of the first people to do it, and a lot of people jumped onto that. But it was also exceptional the way he manipulation and cropping and all the adjustments that he does to it. It's like, yeah, anybody could have taken that, but he has an eye and a way of doing it that he just sees how to make a compelling image. And the interesting thing was, we talked about this a little bit, but looking at all his stuff, I saw where Rainey was super influenced to do all the early discharge layout. For our punk viewers and listeners, it's like, if you want to know where all the fucking discharge ideas came from, not to take away anything from Rainey, he's a fucking genius. You know, he really is. But you can see super influenced by Moriyama.
You can totally see that in like the early like gauze layouts and you know, Gizm artwork and stuff. Like
I know. So right, some of those the when they were showing the magazine, because he did a lot of photography for magazines, you know, and they were showing some of the magazine layouts, and it's like, that's like a fucking Gizm album cover. Yeah, right there. Haven't I seen? No, I haven't seen it. Just super influenced by it. I didn't really realize the impact he has made, but he was a super underground DIY kind of guy, you know. I was reading all the little snippets about him, and it was always talking about how he was just a super DIY guy with a cult following, and I think that lent itself really well to punk rock, which is a cult subculture. I don't know that makes sense. I think it
works.
I think that's a redundant way to say something. A cult subculture. Well, all subcultures are cults, and all cults are subcultures, more or less.
Yeah, true. But I mean, I don't know what you mean. But going back to your original point.
Sorry, I was trying to take a drink of the bottle and realized I had a glass. Maybe we can leave that part in the.
That's definitely going. That's at least going on social media.
All right. Hey.
Back to your original point, when does photography become an art form? And when
is it not just recording?
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of stuff at play. It's not just, you know, how you manipulate the image, how you adjust the amount of light coming in and out. I mean, these are all major factors, because everything that you do with intent with photography brings you closer to making art with it. And I think it's this intent and this purpose of intent that is key in keeping photography a valid art form. Because otherwise, you are just going around and just holding a box in front of some stuff and clicking a button and, you know, look at your viewfinder. Oh, cool, I got a picture, you know. But if you look for the hidden architecture of composition in the world around you, if you can walk into a room and look at it from one perspective and then position yourself 45 degrees away from where you were standing and look at the same thing from another perspective and have a different interpretation or viewpoint of what you're looking at, this intent and this intentional composition work that you're doing through the viewfinder of your camera is what makes photography a worthy art form, in my opinion.
I think you hit it spot on. Because I was just thinking about people like Jackson Pollock and Basquiat, where it's like can he paint or can he paint? Rothko with his color fields, you know, can he paint or can he paint? That's not the point. It's the intent.
Absolutely.
You know? And I know there's a lot of people who don't give a shit about art at all, you know. So they've probably already stopped this episode by now. So we're not even talking to them. We're talking about these people. Maybe they could paint outside of what they presented to the world, but their actual paintings look like people who couldn't even really fucking paint.
Yeah.
But there's the intent. And then you have the people who say, I don't give a shit about modern art because you have to read too much about it to understand it. And it's like, yeah, but that's kind of the point. And to the person who's not as interested in that, it's like, yeah, but why do I need to? And my response would be, you know, hey, if you don't like it, it ain't fucking art. If you do, then it is. If you want to get intellectual about something and appreciate it on an intellectual level and find the art in it, fuck, cool for you. If you don't, you just want to look at it and judge it by what it does to you, by just your straight up visual reaction, fuck, that's cool too. You know? Everybody's the boss of their own goddamn self.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
You don't have to read about something. Did you like it? No. Who gives a shit if you fucking need to read about it? You didn't like it, you know? Sometimes I'll read something about like an artist and then go see their stuff. And it's like, cool, but didn't like it, you know? I think you would call that overhyped.
Could be. I mean, it's all subjective too.
I was trying to bring it back to yesterday's conversation about hyped.
Oh yeah.
We're like, over. Nobody ever says it was really underhyped. It's always overhyped.
It's either
or nobody ever says that's hyped just enough.
it's either overhyped or underappreciated, or
Yeah.
or like usually underappreciated or underestimated or something.
Yeah. There you go.
But yeah, the Moriyama exhibit was really cool. It's at CO.
Fantastic.
It's at CO Berlin, which is my favorite place to see photography in Berlin because it's
amazing.
Beautiful gallery, and there were so many images. He was so prolific in how much output he did that I'd never seen so many individual images displayed like that in a photography exhibition before. I thought it was really, really cool.
Okay, cool. Because that led me to something else I want to ask you about. Because we've talked about this before, so I already know your response. But I think it's a valid question. Of there is the photographer who has the camera that's just constantly got the finger on the shutter, just taking pictures constantly, and their art is to pick and choose out of everything, like the 1,000 photographs that they have, like which is the one. And there's people who spend the time and manipulation setting the scene and making sure everything's perfect, and they wait till they can get that one perfect photograph. What do you think about that?
Well, I think there's a couple factors in there as well, because for example, if you are a wildlife photographer and you are working for National Geographic and you're on a 2-month mission to find the snow leopard, the moment the snow leopard...
Secret Life of Walter Mitty.
I never saw it.
What? You got to watch that because you just walked right into it.
Oh, okay. Well,
but okay. Anyway.
So, if you are, on assignment and you're trying to capture the perfect image of the moment the snow leopard like leaves its cave or whatever and it's going...
Sean Penn?
I have no idea what you're talking about. But you might have to be in a situation where you're posted up, 100 yards away, with a telephoto lens, and you have to take 1,000 pictures on a blast to make sure that you've captured that one moment.
Because Sean Penn just sits there and he took one picture, and that's the one.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? He's just waiting, and the snow leopard kind of does his thing. He only sees it for like a split second, but out of that split second, he has like even a fraction of a split second to take the perfect one. He's like, and done, boom, I'm out.
Sure.
It's like, what the fuck? Okay, gotcha. That's cool. Great movie. You should see it.
It kind of depends on the context of what you're shooting. If I'm doing photography, I find it not so helpful to be blasting the hell out of a subject and running around with it because, particularly if I'm shooting film, it's wasteful.
Okay.
And it's going to be expensive.
Okay. Very good point.
And I think when I shoot analog, I'm a lot more careful because it is so expensive and because there's a limited amount of shots.
So we'll talk about digital versus analog in a hot minute.
If I'm shooting analog, I'm going to spend a great deal of time on each image trying to get as close as I can to what I think is like the right moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I might sit there and wait and then fire. You know, digital allows you to be a lot more egalitarian with this stuff. But I feel like if you shoot 1,000 pictures of something, there's going to be this sort of law of diminishing returns thing that happens where you've shot so many images that you're not really focusing on a single composition anymore.
Okay.
You're almost playing the lottery with, well, if I just put this on blast and I just shoot as much as possible, then one of them is going to be perfect. But that's the thing. It's like one of them can be perfect if you slow down, take a deep breath, and take the time to make it perfect.
I'm not trying to argue with you, but my response from my field of art is thinking about Asian brushwork, ink and brushwork. And I studied it in university, and you'll see these ink and brush paintings by these Asian masters, where it's a bird in the sky, for instance, made of 2 brush strokes, just 2. And you look at it and you go, that is fucking perfect. Like, you can't, like, how did they do that with like, I will agonize over something like that with pencils or even brushes just to make it, and they just with 2. How the fuck did they do that? And the instructor will say, they did 100,000 times that exact same thing until they could do it perfectly with just 2 brush strokes. Know what I mean? So I'm just back ending what you said by thinking about it and saying, yeah, but there is the thing of doing it so many times that you can do it without thinking about. I don't know.
There's a caveat there.
Yeah.
Though, and that's those masters were doing the same image over and over and over again. Taking 1,000 photos of the same thing, but moving around and trying to get a different exposure or trying to get a different, that's 2 totally different things.
Okay.
Even if you're taking the picture of the same thing, because the master is trying to perfectly recreate something over and over and over again to the point where they can do it without even thinking about it.
Right.
This is a little different because there has to be this intent behind every image. And I have a hard time believing that if you take 200 photos in like the span of 20 seconds of like an apple on a table, that all 200 of those images have the same dedication, concentration, and amount of intent in them. I think it's humanly impossible to do that.
Okay, I'm agreeing with you, because why wouldn't you just put a video camera on an apple on the table, walk off for 24 hours while the light is shifting in the room, and then come back and go, I like this one. Cool. What the fuck was your intent on that?
Yeah.
It was process. There was no process.
Yeah.
You ate a sandwich.
Without an apple.
It's processor, right? God damn it. Where was my fruit dessert? Speaking of fruit dessert, I think we deserve a cigarette.
Perfect transition.
Yeah.
All right, we'll take a break.
And we're breaking. Yeah, cool. And we're back.
And we're back.
We're all smoked up and nowhere to go. So, where were we at with photography? What is photography now in today's day and age of society? That's a dumb way of putting it, but sometimes I talk like a movie poster.
That's kind of a loaded question because it's so integral in so many things. Like, everyone has a super high resolution camera on their person now. So the amount of photos that are being taken in our day-to-day society is like so exponentially greater than where we were even 5-10 years ago. There's so many photos being taken every second. If you walk around, you go to a concert, what do you see? You just see a bunch of phones in the air. You see people taking videos, taking pictures. You walk outside, people are taking selfies, asking people to take selfies of them. I mean, it's like photography went from being this kind of...
If you take a selfie of someone, it's not a selfie.
No, for someone. Yeah, but there should be a new word for that. When you ask someone to take a selfie for you...
It's not a selfie.
Then it's just a photo at this point.
Do you know the ussy? If it's not yourself, you're with another person, it's called an ussy.
No.
That's it.
Oh, that's terrible.
Sorry, don't mean to blow your mind.
That's terrible.
But yeah, there's more photographs being taken now than ever before, and it's just gonna keep getting more and more. But what does that say about our society? You know, what is there a judgment you can put on society, or is there whatever you want to say about society?
I mean,
what do you got?
There's a couple implications. One,
That's what I meant. Sorry.
yeah, there's a few implications. One is that now we have to spend every day kind of constantly in a barrage of images and also taking them. So there's a lot of people's time now is sort of focused around taking pictures. A lot of it is sort of generated by social media. People are wanting to, upload their Insta. They're doing stuff on TikTok. That's more video content, but it's still video is basically just moving pictures anyways. So there's like that societal implication. The other implication that I think a lot of people don't think about is that there's an environmental consequence to all of this, and that is the amount of hardware infrastructure that is required to house this infinite amount of data that we are loading up. You try to do the count on your phone and see how many pictures you have. Some people have like 30,000 pictures on their phone,
Yeah, sometimes I wonder when I'm going to run out of space on my... You used to run out of space on your phone. Now, fuck, I have like thousands of pictures. It's like, when is my camera going to say, or my phone going to say, like, you need to delete some photographs?
Yeah, but I mean, now we're uploading things to a cloud, so your device isn't getting full. But just because it's called the cloud doesn't mean it exists in the sky, and there's some big repository up in a fucking cloud where all of our images are being sent. There's a physical
cloud.
server that is housing this data, and server like warehouse structures that are just full of server banks. Amazon and Google are the two corporations that pretty much operate the largesse of all of the data housing in the world. Amazon, I think, probably more than Google at this point. When you have all of these machines...
So the cloud is not an actual literal cloud.
No, it's not.
Because, I mean, they call it the cloud, and then it disappears into the middle, and you think, like, okay, cool, it's up in the cloud with the clouds.
Yeah.
And
But where's that data? Is it in a satellite in space? Like, it has to be stored somewhere.
Okay.
There's a physical limitation to this tech.
I never thought about that.
There is inevitably a physical limitation to this stuff. And I mean, it's funny to me that everybody really freaked out about cryptocurrency and blockchain technology with this stuff. They're like, well, think about the environmental, ramifications of having all these servers processing all these transactions. And it is true. It's something that we should think about. But why don't people have the same kind of alarmist worry about data storage?
Is there an ecological factor about the amount of space that is needed for this data storage? I mean, is it threatening polar bears? Is it that much of a land mass of these storage units that it is affecting? You tell me. I'm not trying to accuse you.
Well, the problem is that we don't have a lot of information. We don't know how much energy it takes to run.
This is the information era. So why don't we know?
Maybe that information exists out there. I haven't come across it yet.
Have you actually Googled it?
Would they tell you?
If you Googled it?
When it's Google?
So that's kind of like where we're at with photography right now.
That's
using up too much fucking space in our land and in our minds. And in our social interaction and all that. It's too much. It's taking up too much fucking space in our collective consciousness.
Sure. Think about maybe you're sitting at a bar with your friends and there's like a pause in conversation and you look up and then 7 people are on their phones.
Yeah.
What are they doing? They're looking at pictures of other people. They're uploading pictures of things that they just did. So there is this,
Or they're editing those pictures, and it's not always just the taking of the pictures that's taking up people's attention. It's also the sitting down and editing that picture. And it's a fucking law.
It's a lot. It's a lot of stuff, and I think one thing that I've been starting to see more of is that people are just getting burned out, and people want to like experience stuff again, and they want to like just talk with people, and they want to go to a show and not have to look at someone's fucking phone in front of them. They want to see a band and like have a beer and hang out and be in the moment. And maybe what's so ironic about the social media thing is like, capture that moment and then put it out for the whole world to see. And then everyone will know that you were in that moment.
Right.
But in the process of doing that, you've kind of taken yourself out of the rest of the moments.
And when every single person on the planet has done it, nobody gives a fuck about anybody else doing it anymore.
True.
One thing I wanted to comment about real quick was I remember when you and I first went to Prague in Czech Republic, and we went to the astronomical clock. Mm-hmm. And that was actually when I was taking pictures. You don't know this about me, but I used to take a lot of pictures. Until then,
I knew that,
and okay, maybe you did, but
I was with you.
I know, but that was the thing. Is I took a picture of the astronomical clock. This was very specific, and this is a specific instance where I took the pictures because it was so amazing. And then I got the pictures developed, and I looked at the picture. I was like, what the fuck? It was so much fucking cooler in real life than looking at this picture. And I kind of threw away, I mean, this was before we had phones on cameras, but I threw away all the cameras I had. Not literally in the garbage, but, just the figurative throwing away, and stopped really taking pictures of when I was traveling. It was like, I want to look at this with my eyes instead of through a fucking viewfinder. I want to see this and not see this as a possible picture. It's like, this is a potential. It's not a potential picture. It's a realistic memory. There's nothing potential about it. I'm actually looking at this. And I think that people are losing sight of what's right in front of their fucking face, and just paying way too much attention to what's on their phone and what's on the photograph.
Yeah. I mean, my case is a little different because I have a background in photography and I studied it, and I'm really passionate about it. I have cameras all over this place. Half this flat is basically just camera gear.
Mm-hmm. We'll do a panorama at some point.
Not right now.
Camera.
So I kind of have this balance I have to walk, because when I go to a place I've never been, you better believe I'm going to have a small amount of cameras on me, not like an excessive amount, but sometimes I'm spending a lot of time taking photos. But the way I at least justified this is that, I'm kind of going back to my roots of analog work, and the analog stuff to me has a very different in the moment feel than digital photography does.
Okay.
Because while I'm shooting analog, I'm not 100% positive or certain that what I did is going to come out. I use my best judgment. I use the tools on the camera to inform me whether or not I'm doing right. I use my personal experience to kind of imagine this, but I don't have a surefire thing of capturing that moment. So I'm just doing my best.
Right.
But also, shooting analog has kind of a meditative, cathartic, relaxing thing it does for me. It's like it allows me to kind of reconnect with my creativity and my past and my future at the same time. And for me, it's about finding beauty and composition and making sense of a world that's often very ugly and bleak. And so photography is like temporarily, for a moment, opening a portal into an alternate dimension where things aren't terrible.
That's lovely. That was an incredible way of putting it. I think that's the best monologue you've done yet in any of these.
Hey, thanks, man.
So we're gonna call that done on that portion. And now I would like to ask you, that is what it means to you But what is the future of photography? Where are people gonna go with all this? Like when everybody has a fucking camera in their hand and everybody's taking a picture of the exact same thing, and you have to watch a show, a concert, through the person in front of you's viewfinder because you can't see past it, and it's like, fuck it, I'll just watch the concert through the goddamn viewfinder that they're holding up. What other choice do I have? Where does all this lead us to?
In my like dystopian forward thinking mind, I kind of envision a world where we are just constantly, even if we're doing other tasks, have some sort of media feed going past our eyes all day long.
Like
24/7.
Google Glasses kind of shit.
Something like this never stops. We're always looking at a video. We're always looking at an ad. There's always something. There's never a moment where you have like, peace. That's my dystopian brain saying, we're all fucked.
Right.
This is where we're going.
I mean, if society lasts that long,
The more realistic side is that people are really losing the ability to be engaged and have attention into a singular focused thing. And what's happening with social media, at least, is that it's migrating more and more towards video and away from still photography.
Yeah, I see that. Mm.
So I kind of see video becoming the new photo.
Or the new radio star.
I killed the radio star.
I did that. Fucked it up.
Fun fact, did you know that Hans Zimmer, like the famous movie composer who did like the soundtracks for Dune and Blade Runner and stuff, Hans Zimmer was in the band Buggles that had the song
Video killed the radio star.
and it was the first video on MTV, and
That's
he's
right.
in the video. He's got like a leather jacket. He's not playing synths.
Okay. I thought the one band did the soundtrack for Blade Runner. Was it?
Vangelis.
That's it. That's
The first Blade Runner movie.
Gotcha.
The second Blade Runner movie, Hans Zimmer did the score. for.
Note to our viewer, Zach. Listen to the Blade Runner soundtrack. It's just probably the best, to me, the best sound, one of the best movies ever, but also one of the most listenable soundtracks.
Synth masterpiece.
Yeah, I mean, and I come from a punk metal hardcore background, and it's a music that you wouldn't expect me to listen to or even appreciate or even give a fuck. But man, that's why I think anybody could listen to it and just go, "Fuck yeah, that's amazing." So this is our future. Overload of images, and I think our brains are adapting to that overload, and we're becoming like able to process an overload of images and input. But I feel like that's taking away from our ability to, like we've been talking about, our ability to just enjoy the moment, enjoy the silence, enjoy the peace. Sit back, relax, and look at the Grand Canyon and go, it's fucking beautiful. Instead of, yeah, okay, how do I get myself in this? Oh, okay, what hashtags do I use on this? Oh, okay, I'm going to make a reel out of this. How do I get, cats involved in the Grand Canyon? Whatever. I think this is, but where does that lead? I mean, everybody knows that that's what's happening. But where does that lead? What happens to the human race as it can't physically enjoy a singularity? No, not singularity, because a photograph is a singularity, but a epic span of a moment as opposed to a singularity. What happens to humans?
I don't know. I mean, we're watching it in real time right now.
Yeah. It's true.
I try to balance it out by reading, by getting away from screens when I can, going running, kind of doing more things that in my day don't involve me having to like look at something,
Right. Unfocus.
Sure. Or just like giving yourself that break, that mental break that you really need when you're so inundated with this stuff.
Be the weird guy that doesn't look at your phone and just looks at what's happening in front of them.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's not a criticism of anybody who does it. It's just a suggestion or advice to people to like just take a break from it every once in a while. Hey, we're all have to use our phones for our day-to-day life and careers and all of that. And it's not saying like everybody should just throw away their phones right
No,
now
that's
and
stupid.
delete their Instagram accounts. Like this whole anti-dystopian is like, yeah, cool, whatever, go live in a cave, sure. Hey, if that's what you want to do that. And everybody knows they need to take a break from their phone, but I feel like this whole podcast today has just really been like just a reaffirmation of, man, take a break from your phone for a minute. So we're done with this podcast. Put down the phone, look at your partner, look at the sky, look at something that you don't intend to take a picture of, and fucking appreciate the shit out of that,
Yeah, because we don't have that much time.
No, time is time.
It would be hypocritical for us to say, all phones are bad. Social media is evil because we
As we're putting out a podcast that people are listening to on their phones.
yeah, and we use social media
Yeah,
in our
exactly.
daily lives to promote our work and to share our stories with the world and stuff. So, not saying that at all, but
No.
I think we as a society need to be careful about thinking about putting stuff into the world with intent and not just recording as much as we can and just throwing it up into the cloud and just hoping for the best. We went to go see Susie perform in Amsterdam. Karina and I went at the beginning.
Susie and the Banshees.
Minus the Banshees. It's just Susie solo.
Sue.
But she's playing basically a whole Banshees set.
Did she go by Susie Sue or just Susie?
Well, her solo act is just Susie
Okay.
because she doesn't have the Banshees with her.
But she also used to go by Susie Sue.
Yeah,
Now it's just Susie.
the name of her solo band is Susie.
SIOU.
XSEI.
Okay, thank you.
So Susie at the show, and we all got notifications from the venue. We saw it at the Paradiso in Amsterdam, which is just a beautiful venue.
Okay.
And we got
But that was a fucking rad concert.
it was amazing.
Yeah, man.
It was great. We got a notification on our phone the day before, and it said Susie is requesting that everybody keep their phones off for the show and to enjoy the concert in the moment, but also not to necessarily spoil it for other people who haven't seen it. Because the thing is like we've gotten so inundated with having to like capture every single moment of things that we're doing and throwing them out there that we're also neglecting the people who maybe want to experience something fresh for the first time without previous bias.
Right.
And I think we also get into this weird territory of everyone feeling like they want to own a piece of something. So they take a video, they take a picture, they go to the Trevi Fountain and they stand there with their camera for like an hour.
The what fountain?
The Trevi Fountain. It's like this famous fountain in Rome that everybody takes pictures of.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was in like a few movies.
It's this weird kind of idea of having to own every moment that you're in and show to the world, hey, I owned this moment. Look at me. I was there. This is mine. This is my mark on the world. And it's like, you can just experience stuff sometimes. You don't have to own every moment. You don't always have to leave a flag on the moon. You know what I mean? Sometimes you can just go to the fucking moon and enjoy it.
I love that. That's it. I think we nailed it. I think Zach would appreciate this episode.
Zach, for those of you who don't know, is a very good friend of ours and a former roommate as well.
Speaking of Zach.
Speaking of roommates.
Speaking of roommates. Oh, we just spoke about one. Zach. And we had Kyle. And we had Ben. And we had each other.
3 times.
And we had... Did we live in 3 different houses? And we did. Yeah, we lived in the Blood Clot house. We lived in the apartment off of Lakeview. And we lived in a retirement home. Mm-hmm. Holy shit. Okay. Well, I guess everybody knows where this is leading. We're trying to segue nicely into a episode about roommates, which we kind of forecast in the last episode.
A bit, yeah.
We were like, we're going to do that. And so, yeah, now we're obviously like hitching up to that. But we're going to do a live episode at the Paris Hilton Hotel.
No, not the Paris Hilton Hotel. We're
Berlin Hilton Hotel.
No, we're doing a live podcast recording at Hotel Selena, or
That's
the
what I
Selena
said.
Hotel.
The Selena Dion Hotel. That's what I said.
It's an event curated by Podfest Berlin,
Yeah.
and we're going to roll the dice and see if we can try to do a live podcast again. So wish us luck.
We didn't actually post the last one because it came out so terribly because I got fucking blackout drunk at noon, which you'll do sometimes if you have to be live. That's not my normal day to day. You know, I'm a functional member of society. I was waiting for you to start laughing, but I actually am. So stay tuned because you might just hear a live episode recorded, edited, and then put out later. So is it live or is it I don't know.
It's a live recording.
It's a live recording.
It won't be broadcast live.
Is that redundant? No, oxymoron?
No, because it's a live recording in front of an audience.
Yeah, but if you're editing it, then it's not really so live, is it?
Well, I think this episode won't be so edited.
I know. I'm trying to push the
Actually,
boundaries too hard.
Maybe the name of this next episode is "We Can't Edit."
We
that
can't. Oh, that's good. That's good. Okay, stay tuned for episode 6 of season 2. We can't edit that out, and maybe we'll have more sponsors. And
Or a sponsor.
More than. Okay, we're just gonna laugh and say, hey, I forget to say this all the time, and Rob does too, but please like our podcast and write a review and give us a good follow-up because it really helps us out and helps us keep going. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Zach, come on.
Yeah. Do your duty.
I think one day we will interview Zach. Because I think at this point he's like the We Can Edit Out legend. People who've never met him are like listening to the podcast, just like,
Who is this?
Who is this Zach? It's like waiting for Godot, waiting for Zachary Alexander. Who is this? What are they talking about? Is it an analogy for God?
Could be.
All right. Anyway, till next time.
Until next time. Ciao.
Ciao. We can edit that out! We can edit that out!